everybody, and welcome back to NovelNoms. I hope you're having a great summer. It's been really hot.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes NovelNoms.
I'm gonna make another summer wonderful joyful dish today, but before I get into what I'm making and the book that we're going to talk about, I wanted to first talk about something I got in my P.O. box. Now, I'll put the P.O. box down below. You can really send me anything. I love suggestions and questions and anything you want me to talk about on the show. But this week I got a wonderful letter, very sweet, from Laura, and her username is KCK68 on Twitter. And not only did she send me a very sweet letter, but she sent me an autographed picture sent to me specifically from Richard Simmons. It says, "Sweet Gretchen, keep sweating. Love, Richard Simmons." And I have loved Richard Simmons for years, and I think I had mentioned on Twitter one time that I love to do the Sweatin' to the Oldies DVD, which I don't care how hokey that makes me, but I guess she gets to work out with him a few times a week because she lives in California. But so thank you so much to her for that. I can't wait to put this up on my refrigerator. I also am encouraging you to send entries for the contest. Next week, I will be cooking a viewer's choice. And with that viewer's choice comes a prize, which I'm going to send the person I choose for the very first one. What I need you to do is just send me a letter or a postcard or something in the mail that has a suggestion of a meal or a dish or a type of food and a book. And if I choose yours, you'll get a prize. I'm going to do that once a month. So I've gotten a couple suggestions. I'm going to get a couple more, and next week will be your choice. So get those in, and they'll be so exciting. I can't wait. So this week, I wanted to do something that is close to my heart. And I'm German. I'm a good German girl. First thought of the book. And Goethe, The Sorrows of Young Werther, was probably the first book that made him internationally known. I don't think it's the best of his books, but it's one of my favorite, and he's a very famous German author. But The Sorrows of Young Werther is a very sad, angsty tale of Werther, who is in love with a woman. And the whole book are just letters back and forth between him and a friend of his, and talking and lamenting about this unrequited love that he has. And it's so well written, and I love this translation especially, so because it was originally written in German. So I'm going to put the link down below if you wanted to pick this up. So of course, to go with a wonderful German author, we need to cook a German meal from my people. And so today, I'm going to make for you, to go with The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe, I'm going to make homemade bratwurst and sauerkraut. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a quick sauerkraut. Now, real sauerkraut is a very arduous, long, painstaking process. And it basically consists of fermenting cabbage. So you take your cabbage and you cook it in the crock pot a little, and then you kind of set it in a dark place for like 3 weeks. That scares me a little bit. Plus, really, who is that kind of time? I'm going to make a quick sauerkraut, which I think tastes just as good. It's really fresh, and it will keep in your refrigerator for 2 weeks, so that's good. So you can kind of use it for different meals. Now, if you don't like sauerkraut, you could make some variations that I'll tell you about that will make it not so sauerkrauty. Because some people like cabbage, but they don't like that vinegary taste. So we'll make some adaptations for you. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a head of cabbage. I'm going to cut off that core part. Now you could shred this like you're making coleslaw, just on a hand shredder. But I'm actually going to just cut it in half. I'm going to cut out the little heart here. I'm just going to run my knife through it, make long, thin strips. Okay, so I've got all of this beautiful cabbage. Now that's a lot of cabbage, right? Yeah, but cabbage is mostly water. It's going to cook down. It's just like spinach or anything else that's leafy that you're going to cook that has water in it. It just kind of cooks out. Heat up my pan, and I'm going to put in just a couple of teaspoons of olive oil. While that's heating up, I'm also going to dice up some of this red onion. Now, different onions have different kinds of flavors. A red onion tends to be sweeter. Plus, it's going to add some pretty color to it. So I kind of like the sweetness to kind of go in with the cabbage to kind of counteract the vinegary flavor. So I'm just going to cut. And then I'm just want a really little dice on it. Like I said, it's going to add some color, a little bit of bite, a little bit of sweet. Okay. And I can hear the oil starting to crackle a little bit. I'm going to get this onion going in the oil, and I just want to cook it till it starts to get a little translucent. So once it starts to cook down a little bit, the liquid we're going to use for this is going to be an apple cider vinegar. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, you could use regular white vinegar. You could use apple juice with some white vinegar to give it the same kind of appley flavor. Now, if you do not like sauerkraut, as I said before, because you don't like that vinegary taste, just leave out the vinegar and use apple cider or apple juice instead. Probably about half of this, though, because you don't want all that sweetness. You could also use stock. Any kind of stock you like, you could use instead. Again, it'll take that acidity out. I like that bite because I think it goes really well with a beautiful cooked bratwurst. My onions have cooked down a little bit. I'm going to add in all of that cabbage. Toss it. Get all those onions all the way through my cabbage. And I'm also going to take a green apple, and I don't mind leaving the skins on, but of course you could take the skins off. And I'm just going to slice this apple and just throw it in with my cabbage. Green apples tend to be a little more tart than sweet, but if you have a red apple, I think it'd be really, really great color in there, and we just have a little bit more of a sweet flavor instead of the tart. But I'm going to throw all that apple in there, get it all mixed up. I'm going to add in a cup of vinegar, about a half a cup of water, I'm going to also add in some caraway seeds, which are the kind of seeds that you would find like in a rye bread. These are optional. You don't have to add these in. I love this. This reminds me of home. This is home cooking right there. Garlic powder. Last couple things. A little sprinkle of the sea salt. And some pepper. Now, like I said, once the cabbage starts to cook, the water is going to start coming out of it. So it may not seem like a lot of liquid right now, but it will be once it gets going. It is already starting to smell like sauerkraut and just amazingness. Alrighty, now we're going to make our sausage. Listen, people think sausage is bad for you. It has to be bad for you. In fact, a friend of mine said, why would you want to make sausage? Don't you have to put a lot of gross stuff in it? And you really don't. Especially if you make it yourself, you can control what goes in it. And when something's factory made, it tends to have a lot of gross stuff in there to preserve it or to kind of bulk it up. So they might put pieces of things in there that you don't want to eat. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to be using a ground pork. This is pork loin, so it's very lean. And you could obviously buy this in the store. You could use ground turkey, you could use ground chicken. You just need to keep in mind when you use something lean like that and like this, you need to add a little fat to it. So in addition to my ground pork, I'm going to use some additional pork. I have 3 pieces of bacon. And the reason I like to do this instead of buying pork that has more fat content is because this way I can control how much fat goes in there. So I know, and bacon has a lot of flavor. And people always wonder, well, why if you get like a turkey burger or, you know, some kind of like chicken, ground chicken, why is it not as flavorful? It's just because of the fat content. Fat's really where you get the flavor. And a little bit is really okay. I take that bacon and I'm going to put it right into my pork and just kind of work it through. Some other ways that you could give fat into this, you could actually cube up into tiny little cubes. Some cheese would be really, really tasty. I'm also going to add to this, I don't know if you remember when I made the cevapi, which were those Bosnian sausages, and we added minced onion. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to take a half an onion, put it into my little baby blender. So I just added like 2 tablespoons of just water to give it something to work with. And I'm just going to pulse it. Ha! Mince the crap out of it. Sure. The reason I do that is because I don't want you to get a big chunk of onion with your sausage. So I'm going to pour that in there. You could obviously leave this out if you don't like a lot of onion like that. You could even just use an onion powder, like a tablespoon of onion powder. Now, got onion incorporated. Now I have spices. These are from a recipe, and this is like, what, 12 different things. And the spices are very important. The spices will point towards the type of sausage that you're going to have. We're doing a bratwurst, which has a very distinct flavor to it. If you were doing like a kielbasa or chorizo or, you know, whatever other kind of sausage you love, it's going to have a different blend of spices that give it that flavor. Your breakfast sausage, that kind of thing. So this is a mix of brown sugar and sea salt and black pepper and garlic and nutmeg and sage and rosemary and marjoram and all kinds of things. Here's the list because I'm sure I forgot something. And to this mixture, I'm going to add about a half a cup of beer. I'm using a Blue Moon Belgian white beer. I just want a mild beer. You don't have to use beer. You could use a stock if you want, or an apple cider would be yummy. It's going to bubble up. Get all those spices in there and get things dissolved. And then I'm just going to pour it right into that pork mixture. Take a second to step away and check my cabbage. And you see that it's starting to cook down. I just want to kind of toss it in the juice again, make sure it's kind of all working in there. Put a little extra salt. I just tried it. Just thinks it needs a little bit of extra salt to bring out all those flavors. Taste your food. It's really important to taste your food. Okay, so I'm finished mixing up our pork with all of those spices and some beer and some bacon. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit, and I'm going to let those flavors kind of marinate into the meat. Once that cabbage is ready, we're going to cook up the bratwurst. Now, I'm not going to do a traditional casing, which is typically made out of intestine, mostly because I don't have the equipment to do so. We're going to make a bratwurst patty, and bratwurst just means pork sausage or little pork sausage. So we're going to make pork sausage patties, and it's going to be delicious. So you can see that cabbage is cooked down, and you could keep cooking it as long as you want until I like a little bit crunch still in it. But you can just keep cooking it, keep tasting it. Add salt, pepper, a little more caraway as you need it. But it's gorgeous, and it's ready to go. We're going to cook our bratwurst. And all we're going to do, just like you're making a little hamburger, I'm going to heat up your grill pan, or you can do these on your grill outside. And I'm going to show you a little trick. Now, when burger cooks, no matter what kind of ground meat it is, it's going to naturally kind of puff up a little bit. The trick to getting flat burgers so you can put stuff on top is to kind of give it a little well in the middle. So when you make your patty and get it all nice and compact, you want to push down the middle so it's got like a little divot. You can see that. So push down in the middle. When it puffs up, it'll puff up so that it's flat and not.
Oh, I thought you were going to do another.
When you're cooking any kind of a burger, You don't want to mess with it a lot. You don't want to push down on it because that's going to make all the juice come out and make it be really, really, really dry. You also don't want to keep touching it because what's going to happen is stuff's going to stick to the grill. So you want to let the meat sit on the grill, whether it's outside or inside or in a pan or whatever, until it naturally releases. Because when it's sticking to the pan, no matter what kind of meat it is, it's not ready to be turned yet. So what you're looking for is I want that, see how it's turning white around the edges? I want that to come up a little more than halfway before I flip it. It's probably, because it's pork, it needs to cook a little bit longer. Obviously the thinner these are, the less time that they'll take. But these probably going to take, 4-ish minutes per side. A way to test the firmness or the doneness of a burger, especially one that's thick like that, see how much give it has? It's not bouncing back at all. That means it's still a little raw inside. So I want it to have a little bit of give, but not that much. So there is our burger. And see, it's got a little bit of give, but it springs back. So I'm going to put that, I have a dish of just some freshly cut apple. I think the sweetness, tartness, and crispness will be just delicious mixed with that. Also going to put on top of there some of our cabbage, that sauerkraut we made. A little just bit of this stone brown mustard that I got from the little store that's at IKEA. But stone ground mustard is this beautiful mustard. It's very rich in flavor. And the last thing I'm going to add are some pickled red peppers. Now, I don't know if you remember, back when I did Shel Silverstein and we did the homemade pickles with the fish sticks and all of that, I showed you how to do some quick pickles, and I did a quick pickle on some red peppers, which will give it a little bit of sweetness and some more little spikes of flavor to add to it. And there we have, so there's bratwurst, homemade sauerkraut, some stone ground mustard with some fresh apples and some pickled red peppers. Let's give this a taste. Alright, so here is my gorgeous little dish. It's kind of a fancy little, you didn't have to do this fancy. And I'm gluten-free, so I don't do a bun, but you can put it on a bun with all this same stuff. Let's cut in a piece of it. It's cooked all the way through. So I want to get some of that sauerkraut, maybe a piece of that apple. Just a little bit of everything. That's delicious. That is delicious. You really get like the savoriness from the burger. It's perfectly juicy because it's got the beer in there. It's got that little bit of the bacon to give it some of the fat. Mixed with the mustard and our homemade sauerkraut, it tastes like I am home. So good. I hope you'll make this. I hope you'll tell me how it goes. I hope that you enjoy my heritage. So give this a try. Play with the seasonings. Play with what you put in the sauerkraut, or just make this and enjoy it. It's a beautiful summer meal that'll make you feel full and satisfied, but it's so good for you because there's so many vegetables and fruit and yumminess and boy. And go read The Sorrows of Young Werther, which is probably one of my favorite, probably in my top 25 all-time favorite books. It's sad, it's touching, but it's so beautifully written. Have a great week. I will see you next time on NovelNoms, and send me those postcards. Send me your postcards.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes NovelNoms.